Greetings, everyone. Hope all of you are having an absolutely fantastic day. We are back again with Treasure of the Midnight Isles, a new DLC for Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. I know a lot of you are super excited about this additional content from Owlcat Games, so let's dive right in, starting with what I like. Many of you hoped this DLC would be a great way to test out new builds, and I am happy to report that it definitely is. You can either play through the DLC during the base game's main story, or start a separate roguelite mode. In the main story, I confirmed you can start this quest in Act 3, but I am not sure how deep you have to get into the act before it will trigger. I loaded an Act 5 save and had to rest multiple days before being approached by the quest giver, who then directed me towards the ship you navigate in the DLC. In roguelite mode, you start at the port where the ship is docked. The Last Aslanti difficulty is automatically enabled, which limits you to only one save. You will automatically create a brand new character, and the vendor will let you recruit one other party member for free that you must also build from scratch. Additional party members can be gained either as a reward for completing specific maps, or you can purchase them from the same vendor. You start with 0 gold, and the cost for purchasing party members steadily increases, making it very difficult to get a full party just from buying them. Once you board your ship and start the adventure, you'll see there are several islands leading up to a final island you need to clear. Each island has a certain number of skulls, telling you the area's difficulty, and another symbol next to the skull showing you the specific reward for clearing that island. Rewards are extremely varied and can include new party members, permanent attribute increases, or even an increase to your starting level if your party gets wiped and you have to do a run all over again. Speaking of which, keep in mind that your first character is considered your main character, so if you die, your playthrough ends. Each island that you visit has its own environment and collection of enemies. The environments are varied enough where I didn't feel like I was seeing the same place over and over again, but all of them felt like a reflection of what we would already see in the main game. From what I observed, none of the environments feel completely new, like visiting Axis in Inevitable Excess. The enemies, on the other hand, are not only varied, but some of them are callbacks to Kingmaker, and others I don't believe have been seen in either game. Mind you, I didn't encounter any enemies that were difficult in a way that made me adjust tactics, but from a visual standpoint, they were still cool to see. What will definitely force you to change tactics are environmental effects that you can encounter at different islands. Depending on your difficulty settings, these alone can be absolute showstoppers that force you to reroll your team. One particularly annoying effect forced my team to pass a reflex check of 30 or fall prone whenever we were in close proximity to an environmental pillar. This isn't a big deal if you have a level 20 party, but dealing with this at level 8 was a real hassle. These effects don't always have to be strictly negative, such as one that steadily aged our entire party as we advanced through the map, reducing physical attributes while increasing mental attributes. Since my Azada party is spellcaster heavy, this was actually a buff, and I had a blast shredding enemies with it. After clearing the final island on a map in roguelike mode, your ship is placed back at the Illusionary port, and you gain a tailwind, which we will talk about in a bit. When at port, you can rest without gaining any corruption. In story mode, you do not have access to this port, and instead can leave the ship to return to Galarian at any time. The port provides a chance to sell gear you have looted and purchase new gear. There's a chaplain located right next to the ship who has a much wider array of items than any merchant you meet in the main game. However, he doesn't have as wide a selection as what you encountered when starting Inevitable Excess, so you'll be able to outfit just about any type of build, but not with the very best equipment. Once you return to your ship, there will be a new set of islands, each with different rewards, leading to a new final area that you need to clear. In roguelite mode, if at some point after clearing one of the final islands your entire party dies, you will start over again with the ability to choose a tailwind. Tailwinds are a list of powerful buffs that you can select from to make your new party significantly more powerful. I chose Tailwind of Good Hunting, which provides healing to your entire party every time you kill a character, based on how many builds from a specific list you use. The more of these builds you have, the more powerful the heal becomes. I hadn't played with any of those builds before this, so it sounded fun, and I rolled a Sacred Huntsmaster, Sylvan Sorcerer, and a Feral Champion. Those three classes alone allowed the buff to give me a powerful heal to the point I didn't really need a cleric. Very cool stuff. The final aspect of this DLC I really liked is the new gear sprinkled throughout your adventure. There's a wide variety of it, from weapons to armor or gloves and hats. Some of them are monster items that could really help a party even in Act 5. I am looking forward to going through this in Act 3 and playing around with all the new toys. Quick note before we get into what I didn't like about this DLC. If you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate you hitting the like button. This information tells me which content the channel is enjoying and helps my videos spread to more people. I really appreciate all of the support. Alright, before I get into what I didn't like, let me make it clear I received a beta version of this DLC. My assumption is this means what I played wasn't complete, and more than likely, you are going to play a version of this DLC that has more updates and stability. All that being said, the version I played was definitely buggy. Sound effects were sometimes missing during cutscenes, traps would appear that I could not clear no matter how many times I clicked on them, and frame rates would suddenly drop in ways I didn't experience during the main campaign. None of this was debilitating enough to really mar my experience, but it was definitely noticeable. Hopefully the version all of you receive is more stable. My next issue is that you have to go out of your way to make combat challenging in roguelite mode. My level 20 party wiped the floor with story mode, but that is to be expected. There's only so much Owlcat can do to challenge that kind of power. But I expected to really struggle playing roguelite on core difficulty. In the main game, the first 5 levels of core can be kinda brutal, and even now going through a new playthrough is no joke. That was not my roguelite experience at all. There were a couple of times that the environmental effects were very challenging, but the fights themselves were for the most part cakewalks, especially if I enabled turn-based. I think this is because I chose the islands to visit based on the rewards they provided and not the difficulty. Consequently, I mainly went to 1 or 2 skull islands and don't think I ever visited one with 3 skulls. I think the DLC would be served by having highly desired rewards like new mythic levels or new party increases placed on islands that have higher difficulty. This would make it easier for people who are looking for a real challenge to do so without feeling like they are hurting character development. Take this next note with a grain of salt, because being honest, I am someone who plays games for story rather than combat. In my opinion, the story elements in this DLC are way too light. This is a much bigger issue in roguelite mode, but it's also true for the story mode. In story mode, a character called the Helmsman visits Dresden and asks for your assistance in finding a treasure within a Lucianera. Every time you complete the last island on the map, you'll have a conversation with the helmsman that moves the story along. I wouldn't say this content is bad, but there's just not nearly enough of it considering how much combat you go through to get there. I feel like more story elements need to be sprinkled in while you are going through this roughly 6 or 7 hour adventure. Despite that, I do want to note that the final confrontation, including the dialogues before and after the fight, was fun and something that I enjoyed. In roguelite mode, you start in a Lucianera and then talk with the helmsman to board his ship. Clearing the final island on a map does not move the story along. Instead, it appears that the story is moved forward when you provide the helmsman with a specific item that I won't spoil here. This means story progression is significantly slower in this mode compared to story mode, causing the player to go through long bouts of back-to-back combat before getting any story updates. After 8 hours, I was character level 9 with 2 mythic levels and still hadn't even experienced the story progression you get from clearing the first major island in story mode. If you love the combat and are thrilled about the possibility of rolling new builds while gaining character levels faster than you would in the main game, then this is probably music to your ears. Frankly, to me, it felt like all stick and no carrot, so I stopped at level 9. All in all, I enjoyed my time with Treasure of the Midnight Isles. It provides a chance to try out new builds, experience new Pathfinder content, and gain items that you can use in the story mode. I am looking forward to what Owlcat does next. Hope all of you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave me a like, share this content, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I will see you all in the next video. Take care.